Hi, welcome to HoboRec Q&A session number 4, and today we have 5 new questions that I'm going to answer. And it's a bit cold here today, as you can see on my head maybe, but let's get started with the questions. First question is from someone called Hey Tor. Hey Tor. Hello Ulf, could you make a video about how you play these recorded DI signals through amps? Do you use the reamp box or just plug the cable straight in the inputs of the amp? Does your interface have a high impedance unbalanced output? Awesome job you do. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to you too. This question was in the comments for a video I made shooting out a couple of different microphones for recording electric guitar. For that recording I actually didn't record any DIs, it was just me sitting playing through the amp, so the guitar was plugged straight into the amplifier and I just had 3 microphones set up on the speaker. The question here is about DI signals and how I do reamping, I guess. My interface does not have a high impedance output. Usually I go with a reamp box. I have a reamp box from DIY recording equipment. Sometimes when I don't have it around, I just actually plug straight out of the interface into the amp. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Different amps vary a bit in how sensitive they are to that. Of course, there's an issue with ground loops, and you can get around that with a transformer, or you can just disconnect the ground, but I won't recommend that because that can get a bit dangerous, so don't mess around with electricity. The best option of course is to have a reamping box, then you know the result will be as good as it can be. Otherwise you can use other stuff. You can also use a passive DI or 2 passive DIs if you connect them in some way backwards and make that work as a reamping box. But of course a regular reamping box made for its purpose is of course the best option. And it's a good question. I can actually do a video on this sometime not too far up in the future. Do a shootout between some different reamping boxes and without reamping boxes, because sometimes I feel that people are just pounding this as fact that you absolutely need a reamping box, and I would say you actually don't. You don't absolutely need it. You can reamp without a reamping box, but the sound can be weird. The sound can be great, but it also can be weird. But when you get it, of course, you work with what you get. So if it sounds good, it is good. But you will get some other problems with the unbalanced signal and ground loops and interference and impedance mismatch and stuff like that. Yeah, an upcoming episode on this, I guess. Thank you so much for the input. So I have another comment here from Tor Harald Nøstdal. Maybe Norwegian, I guess. Why did you switch out the GS-R24 and what do you think about it? Also, the song in the beginning of your video, is it a real song or just a jingle you made for your videos? It sounds really cool. The reason to why I switched it out was not because I thought it was bad, because I thought it was really good and it was really cool to have control over the DAW with the faders. It was motorized faders. You can do an analog mix on the GS-R24 and have the DAW working as a guide to automate the faders and stuff like that. It was really, really cool, but it was a kind of a expensive investment for me, and I just came to realize that investing a lot of money in new stuff that are like modern technology is a bit risky, because when I sold it, it still had somewhat okay value on the second-hand market, but in a few years, who knows, maybe that kind of technology won't be popular at all and no one wants it, and then I'm stuck there with something I bought for shitloads of money and I can't get rid of it. So I sold it, bought a vintage console for less, and bought a lot of other outboard gear and a really, really nice ADD converter from Antelope, the Orion 32. It's really cool. About the song in the beginning, I'm not sure if I answered this before, but no, it's not a real song. It was actually, if you watch my very, very first Bull Session video on how to get a bigger drum room sound of a small room, the drums, I just recorded something for that, and then I just recorded some bass and guitar on that just to have a jingle for this channel. So I'm sorry, it's not a real song, but you're not the first one that asks, so thanks a lot. Circle A Studios, I think you have written before and asked stuff, so thank you for asking more questions. Just wondering about the angle of the TLM 103 on the kick. What do you find that does the tone rather than having it face head on? This question was written in the comment section for the video behind the scenes with Dead Sleep. And what he is referring to is that I have microphones inside the kick drum, and then outside the kick drum I have a TLM 103 that I tilted. Like if this is the kick drum, the microphone is tilted like this. The main reason for it is to get rid of as much cymbal bleed as possible and bleed from the other drums. But also the benefits from that is, as you probably know, when you mic stuff a little bit off axis, you get a little bit less top end and more bottom. Also, it's tilting down to the floor where the bottom end is kind of bouncing off the floor too. It's a three-way reason, I guess, to get more low end and less bleed and less cymbals from the other stuff, because I have the top end from the inside kick mic and I just want to get the sub and low ends from the one on the outside. We have someone called BioURC89 writes, "Hi, great channel, thank you. What would be your recommendation for not too expensive monitors in a home recording situation?" This is actually a really hard question, because I'm gonna admit that in my studio that I've had for many years, my nowadays Studio B, since this is Studio A now, I've had the first version of Behringer Truth, and I actually think they are kind of good. Or that room I have there is not acoustically great, and I have been thinking about buying other monitors for so many years, but I never got around to it, and I couldn't figure out which one I want, and I've been planning to fix the acoustics in the room first. But then I got a pair of Yamaha NS10 to have something to complement the sound from the Behringer Truth, because I think the Behringer Truth has a little bit not so clear information in the mids. So when I had the Yamaha NS10s, it made stuff a lot easier, and I also reference listening in headphones. But actually the Yamaha has a really good line of not so expensive monitors. I think they're active monitors, the new ones with the white cone in it, the HS5, HS8 or something that it's called. I don't know, I'm sure. I've heard a couple of them, and I think they sound really great. And as long as you don't have a really good treated room, I think you're pretty well off with some budget monitors and some really good headphones. And I can recommend actually buying headphones from Sonarworks with their correction of the headphone frequency response. That will make it a lot easier to mix on headphones. And mixing on headphones and monitors in conjunction with each other is probably the best option on a budget. I think I would also recommend to go to your local music shop and listen to a bunch of different monitors and see which one you like the most. And I would recommend bringing some music either that you have mixed or a record that you really love and know what it sounds like, and just take it there, listen through different monitors, and don't get fooled that the one you might think sound the best or the coolest might not be the best for monitoring, but it's actually a bit hard. But bring your music to the music shop and try it out, and see if you can borrow some monitors and bring it to your home studio and try it out a bit and see if it translates good to other speakers too. Last question for today from Chris Wacker. Great video again, thanks for that. You say you use an SM57 inside the bass drum. Looks to me more like a black MD421. How do you feel about recording double bass drums instead of one single bass drum with double pedals? Never recorded two bass drums myself, but I can imagine it's quite some work to perfectly tune them. Cool way to record the bass. Do you blend the mics with the DI Sansamp, whatever track, or just the mics? Makes sense to take an old MD421 for the bite and Beta 52 for the low end on metal bass. So many questions, sorry. Thank you so much for your questions, I would say. No, I'm pretty sure it was not an MD421 inside the kick drum, because I only have one black here and I wanted to use identical microphones in both kick drums. It really is an SM57. If you look again, you can see the clamp holding around the microphone, and MD421s don't have that. How do I feel about recording double bass drums? As you already figured out in your question, it's really hard. And in this case, when recording Dead Sleep, we had some problems because the drummer broke his resonance skin on the front of the kick drum right before the recording. So he went to buy a new one, but his original one has the hole like centered in the resonance skin, and the new one he had was offset like it's usually on most kick drums. And this made it almost impossible to make them sound the same. So it's a lot of work in post-production to EQ and find a tone. But I'm actually haven't decided yet how I'm gonna do. Maybe I will do it like that I take samples from the kick drum that I like the most, maybe do sample replacement on the other, because not only you have to make both bass drums in the same tuning, but since you hit them a bit differently, it's also really hard to make them sound the same. It's much easier on one kick drum. But in editing, and if you're going to do sample replacements and stuff like that in really fast kick drum patterns, then it's a lot easier with 2 kick drums. But as I said, I haven't decided yet how I'm going to do in the mix here. Depends on how much work it will be to get them to sound the same. About the bass recording, it's actually only recorded with mics. You also figured out your own question there. I used the Beta 52 for the low end and the MD 421 for the top end, and try to make a good blend there. You're absolutely right about taking a line DI through an sand sample, something similar. In this case, I was happy enough with the bass sound as it was, so I don't think I need an extra low end boost through that. Plus, I don't think I need any like percussive things going on from the strings either. So I was happy the way it was, and it will have to do. Thank you so much for your questions again, and please give me more questions for the next one. In 4 weeks there's another Q&A, and I hope I get enough questions to put one of these together again. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Cheers.